upcoming World Cup has a major Portugal midfield problem, and most teams haven't even noticed it. For decades, Portugal terrified rivals with elite forwards. Eusebio, Figo, Ronaldo, Nani, Quaresma. Every era brought a superstar who could win matches single-handedly. But the midfield? That was almost never why anyone feared playing the Portuguese squad. Not anymore. Today, Portugal brings a Premier League player of the season who smashed the assist record, creating 132 chances in just one campaign. They're bringing the midfield partnership that powered PSG to back-to-back Champions League victories. Two guys who already read each other's runs, pressing triggers, and passing lanes at the absolute peak of European football. They bring Bernardo Silva's deep experience, Ruben Neves' control, plus the tactical flexibility to dominate possession, press high, hit on the break, or park the bus, all without ever losing their identity. That is exactly why they're lethal. Because for the first time in modern Portuguese history, locking down the forwards won't stop Portugal. The scary part is no longer Cristiano Ronaldo. The real threat is what's building right behind him. Portugal might have quietly built the most complete midfield unit going into the World Cup, and honestly, that changes everything. Portugal has never struggled to create elite attackers. That was never the issue. This is the nation of Eusebio, the Black Panther who made Portugal a global threat in 1966. The home of Luis Figo, the Ballon d'Or winner who brought pure elegance, balance, deadly dribbling, and total wing authority. The homeland of Cristiano Ronaldo, the most ruthless goal machine Portugal ever created. Then came Nani, Quaresma, Pauleta, Joao Felix, Leao, and Goncalo Ramos. Different eras, different player profiles, same DNA. Portugal always bred forwards who made defenders sweat, and at the back, they rarely lacked steel. Carvalho, Pepe, Bruno Alves, Cancelo, Dalot, Mendes, Guerreiro. And then Ruben Neves stepped up, cementing a modern defensive era. Raised in Portugal, polished at Manchester City, built to dominate. Elite forwards, tough defenders, unmatched flair, it was all there. The question mark was always the midfield. Not that Portugal lacked talented players there. They had plenty. Rui Costa was pure magic. Deco had a Champions League brain. Moutinho, Maniche, and Costinha all delivered massive tournament shifts. Still, their midfield never felt perfectly complete the way a true World Cup winning engine room must be. There is a massive difference between having great individual players and a unified midfield that survives real chaos. A World Cup midfield cannot just look pretty in possession. It must eat intense pressure, shield the backline, dictate the tempo, win second balls, and stop counterattacks when the fullbacks push forward, and it has to keep grinding when matches turn ugly. Historically, Portugal lacked that complete package. Rui Costa's era brought pure beauty and vision, but they needed breathing room. Technically flawless, sure. He spotted passing lanes before half the pitch even realized what was happening. But when elite squads choked the middle and the game turned into a physical brawl, their structure cracked. The Deco era added some real edge, bringing a gritty Champions League toughness. Maniche could smash through defensive lines and deliver goals in massive knockout games. Costinha anchored things better, but the squad depth just wasn't there. If opponents shut down the main playmakers, Portugal had to pray for Figo, Ronaldo, or a flash of solo magic out wide to survive. Even Euro 2016, Portugal's first major international trophy, had its own midfield narrative. Fernando Santos forged a squad that was rigid, compact, and absolutely stubborn to break down. William Carvalho, Adrien Silva, João Mário, Danilo Pereira, Renato Sanches, and João Moutinho. They all had roles: pure muscle, tactical sacrifice, defensive shielding, and emotional resilience. They stunned France and Paris to lift the trophy. But they didn't win by dominating the ball. They won by purely surviving, shrinking the pitch, killing the tempo, crowding the box, and basically suffering much longer than their rivals could physically handle. Gritty and highly effective, sure, but it wasn't built to choke out elite squads with heavy possession, press resistance, and relentless chance creation. That is exactly why today's generation hits completely differently. Portugal isn't packing the roster with midfielders who only master one trick anymore. They bring guys who juggle multiple roles seamlessly. And the biggest evolution happened in Paris. Vitinha is now a prime example of what elite modern midfield control actually looks like on the pitch. He isn't your traditional defensive anchor, and he doesn't just play safe sideways passes. He takes the ball under heavy fire, spins that pressure into open space, and dictates tempo right when the match moves way too fast for anyone else to think. He doesn't need 5 touches to map out the pitch. He scans early, turns on a dime, and shields the ball perfectly. He plays with absolute calm, knowing exactly where the next pass goes long before the press arrives. That is priceless for elite teams. High-pressing units thrive on sheer panic, and midfielders passing backward blindly. Vitinha does the exact opposite. He draws the press, pauses, then slips it right to the open man. During PSG's Champions League run, he played 17 games over 1,500 minutes, bagging 6 goals and 1 assist. He finished with 93% passing accuracy. That isn't empty possession. That is elite control under massive European pressure. In the 2026 final, he won Player of the Match. He took total charge after halftime, dictating the tempo right when Paris needed serious authority. For Portugal, that matters immensely. Vitinha is the midfielder who keeps games from falling apart. He links Ruben Neves straight to Bruno Fernandes. He shields the squad when attacks collapse, giving the national team a stability they usually lack in major tournaments. A press-resistant controller who embraces elite pressure instead of hiding. But Vitinha is only half the story in Paris. Joao Neves gives Portugal the missing half. If Vitinha acts as the brain, Neves is the relentless engine, and not an engine that just runs for the sake of it. He presses with real intent, pounces on heavy touches, shuts down lanes, snaps into duels, and instantly recovers lost ground. He gives the midfield absolute bite without making them a purely defensive block. Plus, he can play combining, crashing attacking zones, receiving under heavy pressure, and snapping the ball forward. 14 Champions League appearances, 2 goals, 3 assists, and 91% passing accuracy. Finding that balance is insanely rare for a young kid at PSG's intensity. Usually, international squads have to choose: the slick controller to dominate possession, or the gritty destroyer to survive without it. Portugal doesn't have to make that choice. Vitinha and Neves give you everything. Pure control and aggression. And here is the detail that makes this downright terrifying for opponents. This partnership wasn't scrambled together during international breaks. These two start every single week at Europe's most demanding club. They already read the exact same pressing triggers. They instinctively know who jumps and who covers. They naturally rotate when one drops deep and the other bombs forward. They have fully absorbed Luis Enrique's system, manipulating possession, building overloads, locking down the center, and counter-pressing the second the ball is lost. Weaponizing that club chemistry on the international stage spells serious trouble for everyone else. International football runs on deep relationships just as much as raw talent. Who covers the gaps? Who leads the press? Who spots when their partner in midfield is about to take a massive gamble? Portugal finally boasts a midfield duo actively building those answers every week at the very top. Plus, they are not alone. Bernardo Silva brings elite intelligence and security. Ruben Neves adds passing range and structure. Samu Costa provides sheer physical bite. And on top of all that depth, Portugal holds one specific profile neither Paris midfielder fully replicates: the ultimate risk-taker, the final ball specialist. The midfielder who refuses to just control matches, he violently breaks them wide open. Bruno Fernandes. Drop him into this structure, and the alarm bells get deafening. Portugal's midfield isn't the soft spot opponents have quietly targeted for the last 20 years. Now, it might be the driving force that decides absolutely everything. For years, the blueprint for defending Portugal was incredibly obvious. Choke off the supply to Ronaldo, push the wingers far from goal, and dare the midfield to actually create consistent danger. Portugal always had flashes of magic. Figo dusting a defender, Ronaldo attacking a cross, Quaresma pulling off something outrageous from an impossible angle. But that threat leaned way too heavily on solo genius, instead of a functional midfield manufacturing high-quality chances on repeat. That is exactly what Bruno changes. He rolls into this World Cup as Premier League Player of the Season and FWA Footballer of the Year. He created 132 chances in a single Premier League campaign, topping everyone else in England. That number isn't just a hot streak. That is pure volume. Every week, facing stubborn low blocks or suffocating high presses, Bruno found the exact pass to drag United closer to goal. That's the main difference between a gifted creator and a deadly tournament weapon. A standard creator hits one special pass. Bruno generates relentless pressure. He keeps asking the exact same question until the defense finally shatters. Drifting into the right half space, He whips early crosses behind the backline. Down the middle, he threads runners through before defenders can even blink. And from set pieces, he hands Portugal another lethal rout. On the break, he is one of Europe's fastest midfielders at turning a scrambled loose ball into a dagger of a forward pass. Mentally, he never waits for the perfect opening, he forces it to happen. Even if it means losing the ball. Against deep defensive blocks in major tournaments, taking that risk is incredibly valuable. Someone has to break the line. For Portugal, that guy is Bruno. Stopping Ronaldo doesn't stop this team anymore. Focus entirely on the striker, and Bruno punishes the open space. Drop too deep to protect the penalty area, and Vitinha and Bernardo dictate the territory. Stay narrow to guard the middle, and Bruno instantly releases wide runners. Defend the box perfectly, and set pieces become lethal. This Portuguese squad is far from one-dimensional. Bruno does not replace their attackers, he multiplies them. And matching him with Vitinha for control and Joao Neves for intensity, the midfield stops feeling like a random collection of stars. It becomes a total system, with three distinct roles working in perfect harmony. Compare that to the other heavyweights. Spain remains the gold standard for possession. Rodri, Pedri, Gavi, Zubimendi, Fabian Ruiz, and Marino. A football culture built on control and spacing, plus the technical safety to make opponents chase shadows for huge stretches of time. But this Portugal side can finally match that technical brilliance. Vitinha and Bernardo are completely press-resistant. Neves plays through intense pressure cleanly. Bruno attacks open pockets way more aggressively than Spain usually allows. Portugal might lack that perfectly smooth possession, but they punish opponents instantly when gaps open. France brings raw power. Tchouaméni, Kanté, Rabiot, Zaire Emery. Incredible athletic range, elite ball winning, and defensive brutality. Every slightly heavy touch feels instantly fatal, but Portugal are not lightweights anymore. Joao Neves brings real bite. Samu Costa adds duel-winning power, and Ruben Neves provides tactical structure. And unlike France, Portugal has Bruno and Bernardo as natural playmakers. They can completely manage the emotional temperature of a game or break lines with a single pass. England brings outstanding individual talent. Bellingham dominates both boxes, Rice adds power and driving runs, and Menu offers press resistance. Yet Portugal's player profiles just fit together far better naturally. Bruno does not need to dictate tempo because Vitinha handles that. Joao Neves does not need to play the final pass because Bruno does. Bernardo avoids the headlines because his pure value lies in connecting the entire system. England has brilliant individual pieces, but Portugal's pieces assemble effortlessly into a perfectly balanced squad. Germany features Wirtz and Musiala, two of the absolute most exciting and creative talents globally, capable of destroying defenders and cracking open tight matches. But Germany's deeper midfield balance still feels a bit uncertain. Portugal already knows precisely what every single player provides. Zero ambiguity and zero role confusion. Argentina is the closest comparison, since they understand tournament midfield dynamics better than anyone. De Paul brings raw aggression and emotional fire. Mac Allister brings balance and intelligence. Enzo Fernandez offers clean vertical progression. That unit manages crucial moments perfectly. They know how to suffer, kill the rhythm, and defend a lead. But Portugal now boasts similar balance, plus far more creative variety. They can slice through the middle, stretch wide, press high, sit deep, or dictate possession through Bernardo. They attack rapidly through Bruno, spike the tempo using Neves, or make things physically brutal through Samu Costa. Most nations field good starters. Portugal brings solutions. A World Cup is never won with just one perfect midfield. You win by holding answers for different tactical problems, like Spain making you chase the ball, or France dragging you into brutal duels. England hurting you in transition, Germany exploiting the half spaces, Argentina just grinding your emotions into dust. And Portugal finally has a midfield capable of answering absolutely all of it. The quiet controller, the fierce ball winner, the elite creator, the tempo setter, the deep passer, and physical insurance. The old Portugal terrified you with their forwards. This Portugal terrifies you before the ball even crosses the halfway line. The scariest part of this midfield is not the first three names, it is what comes directly after them. Because any serious contender can assemble one strong midfield on paper. Spain does it. France, England, and Argentina do too. But tournament football requires more than one perfect midfield. It means holding completely different answers for entirely different problems. And Portugal now possesses a weapon they traditionally lacked in major international tournaments. Genuine variety without losing quality. This is exactly where Bernardo Silva becomes crucial. Bernardo never demands the biggest headlines for himself. He is simply the engine making those headline stars actually function. At Manchester City under Pep Guardiola, hundreds of appearances, 20 major trophies, and over 300 Premier League matches. He has dominated as a right winger, interior midfielder, central controller, false wide player, intense pressing trigger, and possession stabilizer. That is not just pure longevity, it is tactical reliability at the absolute highest level. For Portugal, he hands Roberto Martinez total control over the emotional mood of any match. When things get too frantic and open, Bernardo slows the pace down. When Portugal just needs to keep the ball, he fiercely protects it. While the kids bring pure chaos, Bernardo offers the opposite: patience, angles, and total calm. Knockout football isn't always won by the fastest guy on the pitch. Often, it comes down to who survives that brutal 10-minute storm. When the press gets heavy, the stadium roars, and one sloppy pass ruins the entire tournament. Bernardo is engineered for these exact scenarios. He takes the ball under heavy fire, hides it, absorbs the hit, and simply refuses to panic. Portugal relies on Bruno for risk, Vitinha for rhythm, and Joao Neves for pure intensity. Bernardo brings match control. He is the safety net that lets the rest of the midfield step up and play brave. Then you have Ruben Neves, offering a totally different tactical profile. He is not Vitinha, Bruno, or Bernardo. His true value lies in structure, passing range, and positional dominance. He drops deep, shields the center backs, and flips the entire direction of play with a single sweeping diagonal pass. At Al Hilal recently, 31 appearances, 11 goals, 6 assists. But for the national team, output matters less than his actual role. He provides a deep-lying playmaker who anchors the midfield, freeing the attacking talent to push way further up the pitch. Against aggressive pressing units, one sudden switch from Ruben instantly frees the weak side fullback. When facing deep, narrow defensive blocks, his raking diagonals rip their shape apart. Against low blocks, his long-range shooting threat drags opposition midfielders out of position. Look, he isn't there to make this Portuguese side look flashy. He is there to make them solid. In major tournaments, security is everything. Enter Samu Costa. Here is where the squad depth gets fascinating. Samu Costa offers something a lot rougher, far less elegant, but absolutely essential on the pitch. At Mallorca, his season was defined by defensive grit, winning duels, and sheer physical endurance. 44 tackles, 19 interceptions, and 6.6 duels won per game. His profile is crystal clear. He is not picked to glide through a heavy press like Vitinha, or to slice open a backline like Bruno. He is there for those grueling matches where Portugal needs hard contact, second balls, and a pure midfield enforcer. It might sound totally unglamorous, but it is exactly what most elite tournament squads lack when the game gets ugly. There will be nights when Portugal has to guard a lead, when rivals launch long balls, and dead legs turn a tactical chess match into a street fight. Samu Costa hands Martinez that exact tool. That is elite squad building, not a backup plan. Add it all up, and Portugal can now forge different midfields for any match scenario. Want control? Play Vitinha and Bernardo. Need chance creation? Push Bruno higher up. Want a relentless press? Unleash Joao Neves. Need a defensive anchor? Ruben Neves sits deep. Craving duels and pure physical edge? Enter Samu Costa. Every single setup makes perfect sense. That is the genius of it. Spain might still boast the purest possession machine around. France owns the raw physical power. England relies on outstanding individual brilliance. Argentina carries the most obvious tournament identity. But Portugal's current midfield holds a truly rare blend of everything. Tempo control, elite creativity, relentless pressing, long-range passing, gritty duels, and tactical flexibility. Not one version of it feels vulnerable. That is the nightmare for opponents. There is no clear weakness to target. Portugal used to show up with superstars and simply pray for magic moments. Now they bring a midfield engine designed to engineer those moments on purpose. They have boasted golden generations, true icons, and beautiful footballers before, but this current squad feels entirely different. The midfield is not a weak link anymore. It is the absolute foundation. And if this tactical setup clicks, the rest of the football world might realize way too late that Portugal's deadliest weapon was hiding in plain sight.